My name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Museum Open House. This ongoing series features and highlights many of the outstanding museums and other cultural institutions. The main purpose of most programs is to inform viewers about current and upcoming exhibits, various programs, resources, and other opportunities that are available for the general public. Today, via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guest Robert Lange. Based in Charleston, South Carolina, Robert is a highly accomplished artist, and together with his wife Megan, they are the founders and owners of the very engaging and extremely popular Robert Lange Studios Art Gallery. During the program, we're learning why and how the gallery came about and how it's developed and operates today. In addition, Robert will share some of his outstanding artwork, and in so doing, will come to better understand and appreciate his imaginative artistry. Let's start by meeting Robert and learning all about the Robert Lange Studios Art Gallery. Welcome, Robert. So delighted you're able to be here.
Nice to be with you. Yeah.
I first reached out and got in touch and corresponded with Megan about a recently closed exhibition, Fool Me Twice, which we'll hear about shortly. And then since then, I've heard and learned so much more, eager to find out even more and have you inform viewers about yourself, about the gallery, and all you have to offer, not only Charleston, but beyond. Before we jump right to that, I think it would be of interest if you'd briefly share maybe a little bit more about your background, perhaps artistic, professional interest, please.
Yeah, so I've loved art my whole entire life, and I ended up at the Rhode Island School of Design. Um, and my then girlfriend, then fiance, then now wife, Megan, was at the University of New Hampshire, and we crossed paths for about a semester at UNH, and then she went off to London to the Regent School, and I went to Rhode Island School of Design. And we stayed together through all of that. And when I graduated, everyone I knew was moving to New York. And so I did a little bit of research, and I had a lot of friends who moved to New York. And turns out there's 10,000 painters a year that move to New York City.
Wow.
And every gallery in Chelsea and Brooklyn, whatever, is chock full of artists. So we started to realize through friends' experience and a little, witnessing of that system that it seemed as if there was going to be a lot of politics, a lot of networking, a lot of figuring a way to get your foot in the door. And
Mm.
so the two of us who both knew we wanted an artistic future decided to basically drive down the East Coast and look for a system, an art system that seemed more of a meritocracy, a place where, if you're a great artist, you're going to do well, and maybe a nice place to live as well.
Mm.
And we stumbled upon Charleston when we were 23 years old, and it seemed like an entire city that was filled with art, food, wine, music, and was moving at the pace of vacation. So this is exactly what an artist looks for. It calls to that bohemian barefoot lifestyle where you're pursuing a passion, but also enjoying every moment. And I applied to every single gallery in Charleston and got rejected because the work was a little progressive. It was a little different than the regional work that we were seeing on the walls here, until a single gallery gave me a little bit of a foothold and gave me a few feet of wall space, a gentleman named Chuck Wolf. And I showed there for a few months, sold a couple paintings, and then basically took every single dollar Megan and I had, sold our DVD collection, sold everything we could, and convinced a landlord to rent us a small space on East Bay Street, right in the heart of the city. And the idea was we would upfit the space, we'd make it look nicer, and maybe if we could pay the first month's rent, we could continue on. And what was really neat is our fathers helped us put down floors, our mothers painted walls. It was a very much a friend's experience. And at the end of the day, all we wanted to do, because we were young and idealistic, was create an art gallery that was really just a sanctuary for creativity. We both believe that art belongs to everyone, that it's like music. It is this deeper part of the human experience, and there's no reason that art should be for a certain class or a certain, level of information to walk in the door. Art should be something that everybody feels comfortable around, and you know what you like because your gut will tell you everything about what you prefer. So we opened a gallery. We said we would welcome everyone who walked through the doors, and somehow 20 years later, we're still following those same ideals.
It's amazing. Great story. How has that initial vision evolved over time?
What's neat is we just keep feeding it. We're both, the two of us are very satisfied. We've always said if we have a good tribe of friends, we have a safe and healthy place to live, and if I can, if I give myself one dalliance, one extra something, it's gonna be if I can eat really great food, if I can have meals of a lifetime, slow, long meals with good friends. I couldn't ask for more. So what has happened is over the years, that simple ideal of welcoming everybody, every extra dollar that comes in the gallery, we just reseed the gallery. So we started a
Mm,
sketchbook program. We give out sketchbooks to every little kid who walks in the door.
yeah.
Last year, I handed out my 5,000th sketchbook to a child.
Wow.
We have a scholarship program. We give out 100-page book to everyone who walks in the door that speaks to the kind of manifesto and the philosophies of the gallery, but it's meant to be more than just the art on the walls. It's meant to be an idea. And we started to realize that if the real goal of this gallery was to propel the sense of creativity in others, then we could have a lot more fun with the gallery. So we have a rock stacking table. We have this little levitating ball that you have to balance. But we also do things like we have an elephant hanging on the wall upside down, walking upside down on the second floor. We have a glass eye where we found like a hole in a brick wall. So we put a glass eye in there just to scare people if they ever looked in the hole. But we started to realize that the whole entire project of the gallery could be a creative endeavor. It didn't have to be just world-renowned artists hanging on the walls. It could be an experiential type of thing where everybody who walks in, walks out, maybe a little lifted, a little more buoyant in their day because they realize that they too are allowed to be a little creative.
What you just shared, I know is just the tip of the iceberg of the way that you connect with the community and the range of visitors and what a sort of magnet the gallery is for the whole cultural life and atmosphere of Charleston. So perhaps we'll come back to that, but let's take a step inside. And for those who haven't had the good fortune to visit yet, would you briefly provide a little overview of the space, the various areas?
Yeah, so from 2004 to 2009, we were in a little space around the corner. And then in 2009, a building opened up, which is where the original gallery that I showed in when I got to Charleston. And I always loved the bones of this space. And at the time, it was orange linoleum floors, cranberry walls, mustard trim, drop ceilings with fluorescent lighting. All the brick walls were covered with sheetrock. All the beams were covered with sheetrock. And
Wow.
all we did was remove everything and bring back this 250-year-old building, this warehouse, this grain and feed warehouse, back to its original kind of feeling. And what was neat is our landlord, who passed away 2 years ago at 103 years old,
Mm,
basically gave us this space with she had dedicated an art space since the 1970s, but it's actually been an art space since 1919 when the family originally bought the building. They made it a music conservatory in the 20s, sculpture foundry in the 40s, and then a visual art space since the 1950s. And so it's a really, really special building with a lot of nooks and crannies. And you can feel, because of the arts being on the walls for the past 100 years, you can feel it just kind of radiates. And
mm,
so our philosophy of bringing in artists kind of character first, artwork second, and finding really remarkable human beings to litter these walls, what ends up happening is you walk through and there's a general good vibe that happens because we look for optimists and we look for those healers and those helpers and those passionate artists that have something. They're seeking something beyond a bottom line or
mm,
Instagram fame. They're trying to find something inside themselves. And so the space just feels like this big creative project. So you'll see in this photo, there's a swing. It was the very first thing we added to the gallery because my wife grew
mm.
up with a swing in her living room. And she's like, the amount of people that were moved or changed or touched by the idea that someone could have a swing in their living room
Yeah.
is the same kind of element that we wanted to give to people who walk through the door. And it says, it's funny, you can see in the photo, it says, yes, you may swing, because when we first installed it, everyone thought it was an art piece and you weren't allowed near it. But the whole idea was to give somebody that ability to all of a sudden kind of let down their guard. There's couches everywhere. There's, a rock stacking table.
Mm.
There's all these things to kind of employ people to recognize that one, you can feel comfortable here. And two, you might be an artist yourself. And if you just look around, you might start to realize that there's inspiration everywhere. And so the rock stacking table is actually one of my favorite things because people will sit there and, just balance a few stones and you'll see it'll ignite a little twinkle in their eye when they're accessing that creative part of themselves. And I think all too often, there's many people in this world that along their journey at some point were told they're not creative. And so they write themselves off. They think it's either you either are or aren't, you either have it or you don't. And it's just not the case. We are wholeheartedly believe that art is a permission-based system. You decide
Mm.
to start a journey, you give yourself permission to walk that path, and then you just start walking. And if you want to paint horses, if you paint 10, you'll still be terrible. If you paint 100, you might get better. You paint 1,000, you're going to be pretty great. And if you paint 10,000 horses, it does not matter where you started. You'll be amazing. And so
That's
I like giving people that license to feel as if they also can walk these paths.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. I mean, it just exudes both your work and the artists that you attract and showcase. And yeah, the whole idea of playfulness is something that leaves many of us early on, way too early in our development. So to have it in a gallery that sort of complements that type of artwork and give license, as you say, to visitors is so welcoming. A good example of the playfulness was the recent exhibit, Fool Me Twice. We're going to have the opportunity to see a few of the artwork, but just a quick word about the exhibition, very briefly, how it came about and the intention.
So I've always loved trompe l'oeil painting. It's been around since 17th century. This idea of optical paintings that are so realistic they feel as if something is actually there. So I came back from Art Basel in 2019. I painted the duct tape banana on the wall of the gallery. And it's one of these things that just constantly delights. It brings back that youthful, childlike part of all of us when you're in disbelief. Your brain knows it's just paint, but you are something about your body is telling you, this giving you this physiological response that no, this is real and you have to. And what I've realized is, as I've been making trompe l'oeil paintings myself for all these years, is all of these artists that play in this genre, they employ a sense of humor more often than not.
Mhm.
They're obsessives. And so we thought if you took a wide range of these trompe l'oeil artists from around the country, these contemporary artists, um, what we would find is masters when it comes to the ability to render, but also people that have a little bit of levity in their philosophy of how they make art. And in this day and age, there's so much heartache and headache and political turmoil and da 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 that we deal with on a daily basis that we thought this would be a great exhibit for the viewers to come in and again just suspend a little disbelief and enjoy the magical nature of paintings that feel too real to be real. And the painting that we're looking at right here, George Ayres, is a perfect example where I'm asking these artists, not all of them are trompe l'oeil artists, but I'm asking them to step outside of their comfort zone and maybe play in a genre. And all of them took that assignment, and we were so surprised with what everybody came up with, because you realize some of these artists, they're sometimes even more serious, found their playful edge. And the show could not have been a better hit with the community. Everyone who walked through these walls, I think, had almost a permanent smile throughout the entire exhibit. Because again, trompe l'oeil is one of the only paintings styles in the world that I know of that your finger will reach out to touch a painting because
Yeah,
you feel this desire to find out if it is real or not. And it's funny because you would never see somebody touch an oil painting, but these paintings, all too often, you see someone's finger just, this physiological response where they need to know if what they're looking at is real or not. Um,
definitely. Oh, this is another fabulous one by George Ayres. And one other artist we want to share a little bit of work, and another incredible example right here, Natalie Featherston. Would you share this one? I believe
yeah,
it's
so
she
there
entitled
are two
Nestle.
artists in the show. yeah, there's two artists in the show, Natalie Featherston and Anthony Wachulis, and the two of them I hold in such high regard in this genre that I asked them to help me a little. So Natalie, I asked for some names, so she was, nice enough to give me a couple other artists that I could seek out that maybe I wasn't aware of. But she is what I think of as the godmother of awesome when it comes to Trompe l'oeil painting, because she has an ability to render that is so lifelike, but often she'll play with the entire structure of the painting. So this painting looks like this nest that's sitting in a piece of cardboard, but the entire thing is paint. And I mean, the front edge, but also the sides have that dimpling that cardboard gets as it's, bent a little bit. And again, even a gallery owner of 20 years who paints within this genre, it's hard for my brain to swallow and believe that this is not a box filled with a robin's nest, because it is just so good. We also were hoping, I haven't got the recipe yet, but I need to get the recipe for her cardboard palette, because you could
Mhm.
not get more perfect. Whatever color she's using to create this cardboard, it feels so real that even that corrugated front, you feel like you could stick your finger into those
Oh,
little
it's
spaces.
unbelievable.
It's so good.
Unbelievable. I mean, what a talent.
And the
And
entire show was just filled. And what I loved was when you put all these artists together, and a couple of them showed up to the exhibit, they start speaking with one another, and you realize they're speaking of a 20-0 brush that consists of two hairs, that's
mm,
two Kolinsky sable hairs from Russia, and they're talking shop, and you realize to get to this level of perfectionism when it comes to rendering, you working with some really fine materials, and you're also putting endless human hours into every one of these pieces, and so you can really feel the effort put forth when you look at the body of work.
most definitely, most definitely. Well, moving on to another incredible body of work, we'd like to hear a little bit about yourself and your artwork. How would you describe your personal style or approach to painting?
So I realized when I was at RISD, I had a great teacher named Julia Jaquette, and I told her I can't settle on anything. I want to paint everything and anything. And I had seen a Gerhard Richter show at the MoMA, and this retrospective where he was doing 16-foot abstracts next to photorealistic little 18 by 24 paintings. And I was like, oh my gosh, this German painter, he has no boundaries. He does whatever
Mm.
he wishes, and he does them all well. And so I realized that might be the recipe. Is it doesn't matter, what genre you're dabbling in, as long as you're doing it with vigor and you're making a good painting. So I started painting anything and everything I can, and I realized my healthiest and happiest place as an artist was when I allowed my imagination to just commingle with my reality. And I
Mm.
started making paintings that were like journal entries. And so this painting is a great example of my son. Both my son and daughter I've used about 42 times in
Mm.
painting. They've become my
Wow.
muses. My wife Megan I painted 120 times, but I
Ooh.
tend to love working with people that I'm the most connected to. So my son was just drawing a tiger with a Crayola marker on a piece of paper, and I asked him if he wanted a photo reference of a tiger to look at, and he said, "I don't need one. I have my imagination."
Mm.
And that answer kind of bowled me over. It made me realize that I was trying to impose something upon him that he did not need. His imagination was far larger and healthier and filled with life than any photograph I could give him. And so I tried to turn that whole concept, that my experience of him doing that, into the reality or the surreality of what it felt like. And so I put this giant tiger that was basically living in his imagination right in front of him as his reference point. And what I love about paintings like this is it's me trying to visualize the joy, the wonder, the magic that is parenting, and
Mm.
try to somehow put it into a visual language. And so my ultimate goal is to paint these children until they are well into their adulthood, and then
Oh,
collect back as many paintings as possible and put together an exhibit where you can watch two children grow up through their father's kind of imaginative eyes.
oh,
Um,
incredible,
but it is
incredible.
a privilege to paint them.
Mm. Well, it definitely comes across. I mean, just your artistry, the exquisite colors. It's mind-boggling. And to hear the backdrop, the story, really fills out incredible picture of your intentions as an artist. Well, we're gonna go a little quicker, but just a very quick word about these next couple that we're gonna see.
Yeah. So this painting was really neat. I was heading again like a journal entry. In 2010, I went to the Nepal and hiked through the Himalayas, a 150-mile hike with my father-in-law, who's a
Mm.
psychologist. If you want to change your life, you hike with a psychologist through the remote mountains of Nepal for 150 hours. I mean, for 150 miles. And so I was really nervous. I'd never been to Southeast Asia. I'd never been to the other side of the world. And in this adventure, I felt a lot of apprehension because this is a whole other side of the planet. I've never hiked for 5 weeks. I know this, so I wanted to turn this into a visual representation. So I took my
Mm.
dear friend Matt, who's our framer as well. I asked him to come over to my house and roll around on a bed sheet while I stood on a 16-foot ladder and took photos of him as if he was floating through the sky. And then I
Wow.
superimposed an image of the Himalayas from above and basically created this idea of free falling, almost skydiving with no parachute into a new experience. Because at that time, it was very exhilarating and exciting to take on something that felt very, very unfamiliar.
Oh, just incredible. Thank you. I know there's much more to say, but we're gonna move on. Very brief word about this stunning.
Yeah. So this is our gallery director, actually, Curry. And what I love about her is she is nature bound. She is a person who, even when she's working at our gallery and greeting people who are looking at high end, incredible paintings, she is often barefoot. And what I love about those type of people in this world is you can tell that nature just comes from them. It is inside them. And I love the idea that she is this open spirit, this open soul who wants to travel the world, but she is always going to be connected to the natural world in those travels. And so I wanted to kind of make as immense a landscape as humanly possible to feel as if everything else has been removed and all that is left at the end of the day is her and the natural world around her.
In reading several reviews about the gallery, more than once saw people referencing and praising Curry and their experience with her in the gallery. So I know much more there, but this last one, just to show the range, as you were saying, sort of the freedom you feel of painting what inspires you.
So this came from I went out to San Francisco to visit my brother, and it was Pride Week, and this was maybe 6, 8 years ago, and I had been to a Pride parade in support of friends and our community before, but I'd never been to something as large as San Francisco's Pride. So my wife was like, "You have to go to Pride Parade because I can only imagine what it's like in San Francisco." And I
Mm.
didn't know what I was in for, but a million people walk. It takes 8 hours, and what I
Wow.
thought would be something that might have some politics to it, that there might be a pushback in one direction, whatever. I was completely wrong. It was just a tidal wave, a tsunami of warmth,
Mm.
acceptance, love, celebration. And everywhere I went, people were just adorned with rainbow and color and life. And so I walked around that day and just asked if I could take portraits of people.
Ah.
And everywhere I went, I took these photographs of different human beings. And it seems as if everyone was radiant. And
Mm.
so I liked this idea of making, I don't have the contact info on these people. I took hundreds of portraits just quickly, asked for their permission. They said yes. And then so I love this idea of doing a long format painting, something that takes me 250 hours,
Mm.
and paint a stranger.
Wow.
And so, what I loved about painting this piece, and I did another portrait of another young gentleman from the parade as well, was it just allowed me to realize that every human being has this wellspring, this depth of character behind them if you take the time. And so, I would paint their eyes first, stand back, and then basically spend the next 200 hours just kind of interacting with someone who I did not know. But by the end of it, I had so much empathy for her. I feel like I was able to draw out her grace. And I've done this twice. The first time we looked for the person, I posted on social media, and 11
Mm.
hours later, we found him. And he was from
Ah.
Greensboro, North Carolina, and just happened to be in San Francisco the same day. And so I did the same thing
Ah.
with
Wow.
this young woman, and we have not found her yet. So I'm always hoping someday she's going to come across this and realize it was her, and we'll be able to connect. But I've invented this entire person that I feel like she is just by spending that time painting her.
Incredible, incredible. You know, Shortly new exhibitions going to be opening in the gallery. A few words about Michelle Jader, the artist who's going to be featured in her work.
Yeah, so Michelle Jader, a couple years back, we were looking for a new artist. It's about 10, 12 years ago, and I put a call for entry out, and 600 people applied.
Mm,
And we picked Michelle because she was painting on these acrylic panels that were frosted. They're kind of semi-transparent. So this painting is on three separate panels, and she sacrifices this beautiful paint to these frosted panels to create this sense of kind of mystery and depth as you look through the panels. And so what's really neat about her is she takes people a lot of times to trampoline rooms or dancers or gymnasts, and she looks for this kind of elegance in her models. But then
mm.
she paints on these panels that allow the painting to take on a whole different level of kind of mystery and depth, because there are these three acrylic panels that are spaced about a quarter-inch apart from each other. So you get this really neat ethereal quality to the works. And so it's her first solo show with us in probably 3 or 4 years, and they're really wonderful works, and people can't get enough of them in person because that multiple panel really creates something you just haven't really seen that many times on the wall before.
It's incredible, fabulous. Yeah, I have the good fortune watch some of videos of her doing her work, and just outstanding, unique. Had never
Yeah.
seen somebody approach their artwork like that before. You know, in closing, just a few more words maybe about your extent reaching out into the whole cultural life of Charleston. I know there are a number of occasions I was quite taken by the sketchbooks.
Yeah.
Didn't realize some of the other artwork that you provide visitors, but I know there's many gatherings on a regular
Yes.
basis. Just
We,
a little bit
yeah,
more
the
of how you connect with the
idea of this
community.
gallery is to open up that thing inside people that makes them feel as if they are creative as well. So we have a very welcome, when we throw an opening, we'll serve 600 glasses of wine, but there'll be people here in cut off jean shorts, and there'll be people here in tuxedos. There'll be every walk of life, but no matter who it is who walk through these doors, we try to roll out that red carpet and make them feel as if, one, they belong, and two, that they themselves are also creative. And all it takes is, opening the door just a little bit. And that creativity is not limited to painting and photography and sculpture and things like that. Creativity is working in your garden, it's baking in your kitchen. It's all the things that allow you to express yourself in one way or another. And I wholeheartedly believe that when people are accessing that part of themselves, again, they have that extra little twinkle in the eye. But they also, when you're creative minded, then when obstacle or strife happens in your life, you learn to think around it, because creative thinking, it just benefits you in a whole slew of ways. And it's therapy in a million ways. So, if you take to working in your garden, you will feel better at the end of the experience more often than not, because you're using your hands, you're using your creativity, you're using your mind to create something.
What a refreshing and inspiring perspective. Again, can easily see why it's such an attractive and popular attraction in Charleston. Well, Robert, unfortunately, we've come to the end of our program. I want to thank you so much for being here, for talking to us about the gallery, your work, artists who have been featured recently and upcoming, and just the whole spirit and ethos that the gallery's about, that you're trying to connect visitors and beyond. Learned so much more than I could only hope for, and know viewers are very encouraged and welcoming as well. Look forward to visiting on a next trip to
Yes.
Charleston.
Our doors are always open, so come down anytime.
Thanks again.
All right.
Really appreciate it. Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us, and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.